Hello friends, welcome to my channel. In my previous video on colligative properties, we discussed about relative lowering of vapor pressure. In this lecture, we will discuss about a new colligative property which is osmotic pressure. In today's lecture, we will discuss about what is diffusion. Then we will define osmosis and we will see what are the differences and similarities between diffusion and osmosis. Then we will define osmotic pressure and how it is measured experimentally. Then we will discuss some laws of osmotic pressure and we will see how osmotic pressure can be used to determine molecular weight of solute. Then we will see some applications of osmosis in our daily life. So as we know that colligative properties, these are properties of very dilute solutions and these are observed when we add a non-volatile solute to a solvent. So colligative properties are those properties which depend upon the particles of solute present and they are independent of the nature of solute. We have already discussed in detail about colligative properties and what is the cause of colligative properties in my previous video on relative lowering of vapor pressure. For your reference, I have kept the link of that video in the description. Today, we will discuss in detail about our next colligative property called osmotic pressure of solution. But before before discussing osmotic pressure and osmosis, we must know about diffusion, which is a phenomena similar to osmotic pressure. Now, suppose we have water in a conical flask, and with the help of a dropper, we have added a solution of copper sulfate, which is in blue color. So, at first, only a small portion of the liquid will be colored. But after some time, if we keep it standing, we will observe that the whole solution will become blue. Why? Because blue is the color of copper sulfate solution added. Now, why this has occurred? This has occurred because of phenomena called diffusion, which can be explained as the spontaneous mixing of particles of the solute which are present in solution and the solvent to which we have added the solute to form a homogeneous mixture. This mixing, spontaneous mixing is called diffusion. This is similar to what we observed in gases that if we mix two gases, they diffuse or mix after some time. So now we will define osmosis. What is meant by osmosis? Let us consider this diagram. Suppose we have a beaker which contains two solutions. On one side, we have concentrated sugar solution, and on the right hand side, we have a dilute solute, sugar solution. And these two solutions they are separated by a membrane which is semi-permeable. Now, what is a semi-permeable membrane? The membranes which are permeable to solvent but not to solute means the membranes from which solvent can pass but solute particles they cannot pass. These membranes are called semi-permeable membranes. So some example of these include animal bladders, cell membranes in plants and animals, they are semi-permeable, and cellophane, which is a polymer derived from cellulose. Cellulose is nothing but a polymer of glucose. Now, what will happen? You will observe that after some time, the solvent particles from right hand side, which is which contains lesser concentration of solute, they will start moving from right hand side to left hand side. The solvent particles will move from a side which has lower concentration of solute, or we can say higher concentration of solvent. So you can see here the red dots which represent solutes, and blue dots they represent solvent. Now on right hand side solute particles are less and solvent particles are more. So we can say this contains less concentration of solute and more concentration of solvent. On the left hand side you can see these red dots, their amount is more and blue dots are less. That means solute concentration is less. So as the membrane is semi-permeable, so only solvent particles can move. So they are moving from higher solvent concentration or lesser solute concentration to a region where we have either low solvent concentration or we can say high solute concentration. So up to when this movement of particles will continue, when the concentration of solvent will become same on both the sides, the movement of solvent particles will stop. Actually it is a dynamic equilibrium. Dynamic equilibrium means the number of particles that are entering from right hand side to left hand side, they are equal to the number of solvent particles that are entering from left hand side to right hand side. So we will not observe any change, but actually solvent molecules are continuously moving. So we will say this as a dynamic state of equilibrium. So this phenomena is called osmosis. So what is osmosis? Basically, first thing is in osmosis there is a movement of solvent molecules. Solute particles do not move. Only solvent particles move. And where it moves, and from where it moves from a solution which is dilute to the side of solution which is concentrated, or we can say the solvent particles move from a region of low solute concentration to region of high solute concentration. So instead of dilute sugar solution, if we have pure solvent, suppose we have pure solvent on this right hand side, so even then the solvent particles will move from solvent side to solution until there is a equal number of solvent particles on both the sides. So osmosis is a word derived from a Greek word which means push. So we can define osmosis as the spontaneous, means we do not require any force. It will move automatically. Spontaneous passage of solvent molecules. It is very important. So it is a passage of or movement of solvent molecules from pure solvent into a solution, as I explained, or from a less concentrated solution in terms of solute, which contains lesser amount of solute, to a more concentrated solution, which contains more amount of solute. And the second important condition is that these two components they have to be separated from a semi-permeable membrane. So if we compare diffusion and osmosis in a single diagram, so like we explained in our previous slide, what was diffusion? Diffusion was the movement of solute particles from a region of high concentration. See here the solute particles are concentrated. After some time these particles will move in all the directions where the concentration of solute is less, so that after some time we will get a homogeneous mixture in which the solute concentration is same all over. So this spontaneous movement of solute particles from a region of high solute concentration to a region of low solute concentration is called diffusion. On the other hand side, what was osmosis? Osmosis was the first thing is it was the movement of solvent particles from a region of low solute concentration. From this side, the solution will go here. You can say the level has on this side the level has decreased, and on this side the level has increased. Why? Because solvent molecules, they have passed from left hand side to right hand side. So on left hand side the solute concentration is less, so it is the movement of solvent particles from a region of low concentration of solute to a region of high concentration of solute. So the fusion involves the movement of solute molecules, whereas osmosis involves the movement of solvent molecules. And it was from high to low concentration of solute. It was from low solute concentration to high concentration. So in the fusion, no semi-permeable membrane is required, but osmosis takes place only when we separate two components by a semi-permeable membrane. So it is the main requirement in osmosis. So the fusion can take place both in gases as well as solutions, but osmosis takes place only in solutions. So osmosis will take place only in solutions, and even when a solution is separated by a solvent by a semi-permeable membrane. So osmosis, the phenomena of osmosis leads to osmotic pressure. So we will see what is meant by osmotic pressure. Now suppose consider a bag made up of semi-permeable material and it contains some sugar solution. Okay, so this bag, it contains some sugar solution and it has been tied to a some glass tube, and we have lowered it in a beaker which contains pure water. Okay, so what is the condition? A bag containing 5% sugar solution which is contained in a semi-permeable bag. We have put this in a beaker which contains pure water. So what will happen? Obviously, osmosis will take place. Why? Because it has higher solvent concentration and it contains lesser solvent concentration. What will happen? Eventually, the solvent molecules, they will enter the bag. Okay, what will happen? The water level in this tube will rise because some water has been moved from beaker to the bag because of osmosis. Now, up to when the solvent, you will observe that after some time the passage of water will stop. It will, after achieving certain height, then there will be no movement of solvent particles. This state is called state of dynamic equilibrium. That means at this stage, the molecules, number of solvent molecules that are entering in the bag is equal to the number of solvent molecules that are coming out of the bag. So let us try to understand this. So in initial, when we just put this bag containing solution in water, as the number of water molecules were more outside, so there were more number of collision of out hand side, so the water will enter the bag. So as the water will go inside the bag, so the water concentration inside the bag will increase. So a stage will come when the outside collisions will be equal to the inside collisions. So that means the amount of water that is entering inside the bag will be equal to the amount of water which is coming out of the bag. This is called a state of dynamic equilibrium, and there will no further increase of water level. So this state is called state of dynamic equilibrium, and the hydrostatic pressure of the column set up as rest of osmosis, this is called osmotic pressure. So this column of water, The pressure exerted by this column of water, which we can find by formula H rho g, where h is the height of the column, rho is density, and g is acceleration due to gravity. So this pressure is called osmotic pressure, and it is denoted by a symbol pi. We can alternatively give some alternative definition of osmotic pressure also. Consider a different case. Now let us assume, suppose we have a U-shaped container which is separated in the center by a semi-permeable membrane. On left hand side we have pure solvent, assume water, and on right hand side we have a solution of glucose in water. So what will happen? Because of osmosis, the water molecule from left hand side will go to the right hand side. So the water level in right hand side will increase. So the pressure due to this column is called osmotic pressure. So when the equilibrium is achieved, then there will be no net flow of liquid from left hand side to right hand side. Now suppose we want to stop the water molecules to enter them the right hand side. We don't want that these molecules should enter the right hand side. So what we have to do is we have to apply some pressure here. This pressure can help us to stop the movement of particles from left hand side to right hand side. So this pressure, this minimum pressure that has to be applied on the solution to prevent the entry of the solvent into the solution through the semi-permeable membrane is called osmotic pressure. So this minimum pressure that we have to apply to stop the movement of solvent molecules from left hand side to right hand side is called osmotic pressure. So how we will know that there is no net flow of water from solvent side to solution side? By noting this level. If this level remains same, that means there is no net flow of solvent molecules. So this is how we can also define osmotic pressure, and it is denoted by pi. Now what will happen if we apply more pressure than osmotic pressure? If we increase the pressure, then there will be flow of water molecules as this membrane is permeable from solution to solvent. If the applied pressure is greater than osmotic pressure, then the solvent molecules will start moving from solution to solvent. This phenomena is called reverse osmosis, which is a very important process, and this is used for separation of salt from seawater. This process is called desalination, and almost every household now uses reverse osmosis for purification of water. Now let us see how experimentally we can determine the osmotic pressure. So there are many methods to determine osmotic pressure, like Pfeffer method, Morse and Phaser method, and the third method that we will discuss today, Berkeley and Hartley's method. We will discuss it now. The experimental set of this method looks like this, which contains a porous tube. This is a porous tube, and to this tube, right hand side is attached to a reservoir to put the solvent, and on left hand side it is attached to a tube T. This is separated from a vessel made of gunmetal by a semi-permeable membrane. Okay. Now, these vessels contain the solutions whose osmotic pressure we have to determine. This method is based on the principle that we can stop. Now, what will happen? This we will put pure solvent in this tube. So what will happen? These solvent molecules will try to enter from this tube to this container because of osmosis. So to stop their movements, we have to apply pressure here. So this is the main principle of this method. Okay, we can stop. This is based on applying pressure on solution, which is just sufficient to prevent the entry of the solvent into the solution through semi-permeable membrane. So how we can see that there is no flow of solvent due to osmosis, this water level will tend to fall. Okay. Now, if we apply pressure, until then we have to apply the pressure so that there is no change in this mark. We can say that the applied pressure is equal to the osmotic pressure, which we can read on this pressure gauge. So at this stage, when there is no net flow of solvent from solvent to solution, the pressure reading on this stage will be osmotic pressure. Now, there are certain advantages of this method. The first advantage is there is no strain on the membrane as there is no movement of solvent particles from one side to another. So this membrane remain unstrained. Second, this method takes less time. Third is the concentration of the solution does not change. Osmotic pressure depends upon the concentration of the solution. So if you want to note down the osmotic pressure calculately, so we should always keep the concentration constant. But if solvent molecules enter this side, the concentration of solution will change. But this method prevents this. It does not allow the solvent to enter from this side to this side. So the concentration of solution remains same. So this was all about Berkeley's and Hartley's method by which we can determine the osmotic pressure. Next, we will discuss some laws of osmotic pressure and Van 't Hoff theory. Now, Van 't Hoff studied osmotic pressure of a number of dilute solutions. And what were his observations? That he says that dilute solutions they obey Boyle's law and Charles law as gases do. These are very common laws in ideal gases. So Van 't Hoff suggested that as the ideal gases obey Boyle's law and Charles law, dilute solutions also obey these laws. So for solutions, he named these laws as Boyle-Van 't Hoff law and Charles-Van 't Hoff law. First, we will see, and collectively, these laws are called laws of osmotic pressure. First, we will discuss Boyle-Van 't Hoff law. So this law states that temperature remaining constant means if we remain the temperature constant, the osmotic pressure of a dilute solution is directly proportional to the molar concentration of the solution. Mathematically, we can write it as P is proportional to C at constant temperature. So if we remove, or we can write it as P divided by C is constant. So for n moles of solute dissolved in V liter of solutions, concentration will be given by number of moles per unit volume. C is equal to N by V, or we can say C is inversely proportional to the volume. Higher the greater the volume, lesser the concentration. V is volume of solution. So we can write that from this, and as P is directly proportional to C and C is inversely proportional to V, or we can say C is directly proportional to 1 by V, we can write P is directly proportional to 1 by V, or PV is constant, and this is similar to Boyle's law. PV is equal to constant at constant temperature. So another statement we can give, temperature remaining constant, osmotic pressure of a dilute solution is inversely proportional to the volume of the solution containing 1 mole of solute dissolved in it. If we put n is equal to 1, then P is proportional to 1, directly proportional to 1 by V, or we can say P is inversely proportional to volume at constant temperature and n is equal to 1. Similar to this is the Charles-Van't-Hoff law, which states that for a given concentration of solution, now we will keep the concentration constant, osmotic pressure is directly proportional to the absolute temperature. So Boyle's-Van't-Hoff law, it sees the effect of concentration on osmotic pressure. We can also denote use by, I have used B, but you can also use symbol pi. So Boyle studied the effect of concentration on osmotic pressure, keeping the temperature constant. Charles Van't-Hoff law studies the effect of temperature on osmotic pressure, keeping the concentration constant. So mathematically we can write osmotic pressure is directly proportional to at given concentration. So if we want to see the effect of temperature, we have to keep the concentration constant. If we have to see the effect of concentration, we have to keep the temperature constant. Why? Because osmotic pressure depends both on concentration as well as temperature. We will see in the next slide. Alternatively, we can write it P divided by T is constant, which is Charles law. Or more precisely, for solutions, we can say it Charles Van't-Hoff law. Now, let us see what is Van't-Hoff theory of dilute solution. Now, if we combine these Boyle's law and Charles law, what was Boyle's law? It states that osmotic pressure is directly proportional to temperature at a given concentration, and Charles law states that pressure is directly proportional to concentration at a constant temperature. If we combine these two laws, we can write P is directly proportional to Ct. If we remove this proportionality sign, we can write P is equal to Kct, where K is a constant of proportionality. Now, suppose n moles of solute have been dissolved in P liter of solution. So, concentration will become number of moles dissolved in per unit volume, it is equal to n by V. So putting this value of C in equation 1, we can write P is equal to K n by V T by putting the value of C here from this, or we can write, if we take V here, it will become PV is equal to NKT. Now if number of mole is 1, then this expression reduces to PV is equal to KT. Now Van't-Hoff measured the values of K, and what he found that after experimental measurement of K, its value was equal to 0.0821, which is same as gas constant R. Gas constant has also same value, 0.0821 liter atmosphere per degree per mole. So we can replace K by R in this relation. We can write PV is equal to nRT for n moles, or PV is equal to RT for 1 mole of a solute dissolved in V liters of solution. So replacing K by R in equation 1, the equation becomes P is equal to CRT. From this equation, Van't-Hoff gives a theory of dilute solutions, which states that osmotic pressure of a dilute solution is equal to the pressure which the solute would exert if it were a gas at the same temperature and occupied the same volume as solution. So similar to Avogadro's law, we also have a Avogadro-Van't law, which states that if two solutions have same osmotic pressure and temperature, their equal volumes must contain equal number of moles. Now let us try to understand this. What he says, two solutions have same osmotic pressure, they have same P, and their equal volumes must contain for a given V. Sorry, he states that if two solutions have same osmotic pressure and temperature, P and T are same, R is constant, then C will also be same. Now C is equal to N by V. If two solutions they have same osmotic pressure and same temperature, R is also a constant, so C will be same. What is C? C is equal to N by, if volume is also same, so N will be same. That is the statement of this law. If two solutions have same osmotic pressure and temperature, their equal volumes must contain equal number of moles. Or alternatively, we can define it as solutions of equimolar concentration at the same temperature must have the same osmotic pressure. And the solutions which have same osmotic pressures, these are called isotonic solutions. What are isotonic solutions? The solutions having same osmotic pressure. Now we will see how osmotic pressure is a colligative property. Now what is the Van 't Hoff equation for osmotic pressure? PV is equal to nRT, where P is osmotic pressure, or we can write P is equal to N by VRT, or CRT, where C is concentration, number of moles per unit volume. So this expression clearly states that osmotic pressure of a solution, it depends only upon the number of moles of solute dissolved. If we fix the volume to 1 liter, so this osmotic pressure will only be a function of this N. What is N? N is the number of moles of solute. So osmotic pressure is a colligative property. What is a colligative property? Which depends only upon the number of moles. So we have proved that P depends only upon N. So it is a colligative property and it is independent of the nature of the solute. Now this can be used to determine molecular mass of the solute. Let us see mathematically how PV is equal to nRT. This is the Van 't Hoff equation where P is osmotic pressure at temperature T. So suppose W grams of solute are dissolved in V liters of solution and M is the molecular weight of solute. So what will be N? N will be weight divided by molecular weight. So substituting the value of N in this equation, what we get? PV is equal to W by M RT, where P is the osmotic pressure, V is volume, W is weight of solute, M is molecular weight of solute, R is constant, its value is 0.0821, and T is temperature. So we can rearrange this equation to M is equal to WRT by PV. Now, if we know osmotic pressure, we already know temperature, we know at what temperature we are carrying out the study, and we also know how much solute we have taken and how much volume of solution we have taken. We can calculate molecular weight of solute. But this method is generally not used because of experimental difficulties, but this method is very useful for determining molecular masses of polymers using colligative properties. There are other methods to determine molecular masses of polymers except colligative properties, but in if we use if we have to use colligative properties, osmotic pressure is the best method to determine molecular mass of polymers. So Other methods like elevation in boiling point, depression in freezing point, they are not used. Why they are not used? Because the change observed are too small. Now let us try to understand why the change is less. Polymers generally have very high molecular mass, okay, in the range of 10,000 or even more. Okay. Now, for suppose we have taken 5 gram of polymer. So what will be n? N will be 5 divided by 1000. So which is a very less number. So this much number of moles of polymer, they do a very less change in these properties which we cannot even measure. But they do a appreciable change in osmotic pressure. So that's why osmotic pressure is used to determine molecular masses of polymers. So this is the application of osmotic pressure. Next, we will see how osmosis is important to us. First of all, we all know that cell membranes, they are semi-permeable and they allow some water or small molecules to pass through them. Now, the difference in concentration of solutes inside and outside the cell, it gives rise to osmotic pressure, which is very important. Now, this process, it helps cells to maintain their structure. Let us see how. So, suppose solutions injected into the bloodstream for blood transfusion or some other intravenous feeds, they are isotonic with blood. Isotonic means they have same vapor osmotic pressure as that of blood. So what will happen? This is a blood cell and this is a solvent that we have injected. Now if these two have same osmotic pressure, then there will be no flow of solvent either from inside to outside or from outside to inside. So the cell structure will remain same. Now suppose we have injected a hypotonic solution. The solution whose osmotic pressure is less is called a hypotonic solution. Now what will happen? Now this is the blood cell. This is the solution that so this is the solution, outside solution, and outside solution is dilute, means it has lesser solute concentration, inside has more solute concentration. So what will happen? The liquid solvent will enter the cells and cells will swell. So at if solvent keeps on entering the cell, it may even burst and die. This process is called hemolysis. And if the injected solution is hypertonic, that has higher osmotic pressure, but in terms of biology means it is more concentration. Hypertonic means which is dilute. In terms of osmotic pressure, we can say the solution which has lesser osmotic pressure is called hypertonic and which has higher osmotic pressure is called hypertonic. Now we were discussing if we injected a hypertonic solution to the blood cells, what will happen? Now this is a blood cell and we have added a hypertonic solution or more concentrated solution. So now this solution contains higher solute concentration. So what will happen? The solvent will go from inside of the cell to the outside of the cell because of osmosis. So the cells will shrink and they may die. So that is how osmosis is very important for our cells and they help in maintaining their structure. Next application is in dialysis. So dialysis is a technique for removal of impurities from solutions of biological macromolecules, for example, blood. Dialysis is used for the purification of blood. Generally, in our body, blood is purified by kidneys. But if by some means the kidneys of any person they are not working, we can artificially purify blood by phenomena called dialysis. A 0.9% sodium chloride solution is isotonic with fluids inside cells in the body. Now, next thing, cell shriveling means wrinkle or contract by osmosis happens when vegetables or meats or any organic matter it come in contact with the brine. What is brine? A concentrated solution of NCl. So let us understand this. Suppose we have put this cucumber in a brine solution. Okay. After some time, you will observe that the cucumber will shrink and wrinkles will appear. This phenomenon is called shriveling. This has occurred. Why? Because outside it is concentrated solution. It has more solute particles. Inside the concentration of solute is less, so there will be flow of solvent from cells of the cucumber to the outside solution, so it will lose water and show cell shriveling. So that was all today on osmotic pressure. If you like the video, please subscribe to my channel and also like it on YouTube. In the next lecture, we will discuss about elevation in boiling point. Thank you very much.